During times of national strain, the government makes a direct appeal to your sense of duty. They ask you to stop driving to save fuel. They suggest you stop buying gold to protect the currency. They tell you to work from home to ease the infrastructure. This request for sacrifice is part of a silent contract. You provide the discipline, and the state provides a stable, predictable system to live in. But that stability is becoming a moving goalpost. Whether shifts or sudden changes to administrative rules, the state often demands a level of foresight from you that it fails to maintain. We see this friction in the recent UPSC Civil Services exam. For tens of thousands of students, the predictability of the syllabus is the only thing they bank on. When that exam becomes a series of unpredictable questions with no clear link to the stated curriculum, it isn't just a hard test. It is a broken promise of institutional stability. This creates a severe imbalance. On one side, the massive concrete weight of citizen duties, taxes, and strict compliance pushes the scale firmly down. On the other, the tray meant to hold institutional accountability flies into the air, feather light and completely empty. Why do the most powerful pillars of the state, from the security apparatus to the judiciary, evade the same standards of transparency that they legally enforce upon you? A democracy cannot be a one-way street. If the entire weight of responsibility rests on the citizen while the system remains opaque, the very idea of public service begins to erode. Nowhere is the demand for a verifiable system more critical than at the ballot box. To eliminate the old era of manipulated paper ballots, India shifted to electronic voting machines. They were first tested in 1982 in Kerala, replacing physical paper with hardware to provide a faster, more secure way to count the national will. But the system faced a new challenge: public doubt. Voters wanted to see where their vote actually went. This led to the introduction of VVPAT machines, first tested in Nagaland in 2013, which provide a physical paper trail for 7 seconds before the slip drops into a locked box. By 2017, the state reached a milestone in Goa, achieving 100% VVPAT deployment. On paper, the technological fix for transparency was complete. Yet a recent Supreme Court petition points to a critical missing detail: a timestamp. Critics argue that without recording the exact hour and minute a vote is cast, the system cannot mathematically disprove claims of end-of-day voting spikes. That blank space on the slip represents a lingering gap in public trust. Technology is a powerful tool, but it cannot replace institutional honesty. If a system resists basic requests for more granular data, even the most advanced machines won't solve a trust deficit. While the state navigates trust issues internally, it is doubling down on its monitoring of the nation's borders. The historical consequences of a porous coastline are well known. The 2611 Mumbai attacks showed that undersecured maritime entry points can lead to national catastrophe. To secure these zones, the government is handing over the security jurisdiction of 1,200 civilian fishing harbors to the CISF, the same force that guards our industrial complexes and airports. Bringing these chaotic ports under state control requires a digital net. Local fishermen will now be required to carry biometric smart cards, allowing the state to track exactly who is on the water and filter out potential infiltrators or smugglers. This move towards standardized, high-level security forces mirrors the way international peacekeeping units operate in volatile zones, bringing a uniform protocol to a complex domestic landscape. The government's willingness to enforce strict biometric accountability on ordinary fishermen shows that the state knows how to monitor the public for the sake of security. The question is why it hasn't applied that same rigor to monitoring its own internal processes. We see the cost of this accountability gap in our environmental crises. Massive forest fires are consuming the hillsides of Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand. Forests are on the concurrent list, meaning both the central and state governments are responsible for them. But in practice, this shared responsibility often becomes shared neglect. When there is no clear address for the blame, the preventive work, like managing biomass, simply doesn't happen. This highlights a pattern. When a crisis occurs, institutions often focus on managing the narrative rather than the failure itself. We see this even in our highest courts. Recently, authors of an NCERT textbook found themselves in the crosshairs for writing about known issues of corruption within the judicial system. They were treated not as researchers, but as targets for highlighting an uncomfortable truth. The judiciary is the guardian of free speech under Article 19, yet it often uses contempt of court as a shield against legitimate criticism. It creates a system where the public is encouraged to speak freely until they speak about the flaws of the court itself. Whether it's the jurisdictional confusion over burning forests or the defensive silence of the courts, the result is the same. When an institution uses its power to hide its flaws rather than fix them, it replaces public trust with a wall of defensive silence. The Indian citizen is consistently compliant, paying taxes and following mandates, but that compliance is fragile. It relies on the belief that the system is working just as hard for the citizen as the citizen is for the state. True leadership recognizes that accountability begins at the top. Think of former Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri. During a severe food crisis, Shastri didn't just broadcast a mandate. He asked his own family to skip meals before he ever requested the nation to fast. He understood that you cannot demand a sacrifice from the public that you are not willing to make yourself. Democratic accountability is a mutual contract. It only functions when institutions are strong enough to hear criticism and transparent enough to prove they are following their own rules. If the pillars of power refuse to step onto the same scale they force upon the public, how much longer can that balance hold?